6 states tried to ban it. It's not a legend. There's documentation, dates, and names. A homemade bait, made with ingredients you can buy at any market, started bothering the industry so much that fishing lobbies tried to regulate its use in saltwater in the 90s. They didn't succeed. But they erased the knowledge in another way. They simply stopped teaching it. And for decades, amateur fishermen continued spending fortunes on synthetic baits that barely come close to what the old river dwellers made with what they had in their kitchens. Today you're going to learn what they've been hiding. If this is your first time here, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any secrets the industry is trying to bury. Let me tell you what happened at a marina in South Florida in September 2019. A fisherman named Daario, a retiree, the son of Azorean immigrants who came to the American coast in the 1970s, showed up for a group fishing trip with an old styrofoam cooler and an unmarked plastic container. Outside, the others arrived with brand-name lures, nice packaging, artificial coloring, and the scent of synthetic vanilla. A complete kit that easily exceeded US $80. Daario didn't say anything. He just opened the container, calmly prepared the hooks, and threw them into the water. In 40 minutes, he had 3 red snappers on the line. Good, firm, heavy ones. The rest of the group, with all that expensive paraphernalia, had caught 2 smaller fish and released 1. By noon, Daario had 8 fish and a smile of someone who knew what was going to happen before it even started. The others reached 7 in total, and that was 6 fishermen against only 1. Someone asked what he was using. He opened the container. Inside was a dark, somewhat thick paste with a strong smell. "Fermented sardines with garlic and wheat flour," he said. "I learned it from my father. He learned it from his grandfather on the islands." They laughed, but the fish in Daario's bucket were anything but funny. This is not an isolated case. Variations of this account appear in fishing communities all along the American East Coast, mainly among fishermen of Latin, Portuguese, and Caribbean origin who brought their methods from home and never gave them up. The problem is that this knowledge remained restricted to these groups. It didn't become a manual, a course, or a product. It stayed within the home, passed from hand to hand, becoming increasingly rare. And while this was happening, the industry grew, selling the synthetic, expensive, packaged, and inefficient version of what these fishermen were already doing for free. If you've been saltwater fishing for a while and still rely solely on store-bought bait, you'll understand every word that comes next, because there's a logic behind it that no one has properly explained to you. Before we continue, I need to tell you something. Everything you're going to learn here today is part of what's compiled in the book High-Level Fishing. The Water Game. I wrote this material to bring together in one place what the industry has spent decades trying to erase. Inside, you'll find practical saltwater and freshwater reading techniques, how to identify productive zones in seconds without relying on expensive equipment. You'll learn where the fish really are, bottom structure, temperature, pressure, everything that determines the right spot before you cast your line. You'll understand how current, tide, and water flow act as the invisible engine of fishing, and how to use this to your advantage. Positioning and angle of attack, which decide more than any lure. Fish behavior patterns in different weather conditions. Real-time decision-making, which is what separates those who try from those who decide. And the mindset of the angler who plays at a high level, not as a philosophy, but as a concrete practice, all without fluff. The link is in the description. Now let's get to what you came here for. The bait that was almost banned isn't just one type of bait. It's a category, an approach. And its central ingredient is something that ancient saltwater fishermen, from the Azores to the Caribbean, from northeastern Brazil to the Portuguese coast, have always used masterfully: fermented fish. Not dried, not smoked. Fermented, with all the processes that entails. Strong smell, different texture, completely different chemical composition from fresh bait. And that's exactly why it works in a way that synthetic baits will never be able to replicate properly. Does it seem too simple? It is. But let me show you why this bothers the industry so much. When fishing lobbies attempted to regulate the use of homemade fermented baits in 6 American states between 1993 and 1997, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, the official argument was environmental risk. They claimed that fermentation could introduce bacteria into the ecosystem. The problem is that the same argument was never used against the synthetic baits with chemical dyes, industrial preservatives, and artificial flavors that major brands sold. The difference? One was natural and free. The other was expensive and profitable. The ban was never approved. But the noise was enough to scare amateur fishermen and cause them to abandon the practice. Mission accomplished, without needing a law. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's market logic. When a free method competes directly with a $60 product, someone will try to eliminate the free method. Always. And when it's not legally possible to eliminate it, you create doubt, fear, or simply let the knowledge die in silence. Now let's get to the part that really matters. Why do fish in saltwater respond so strongly to fermented bait? The olfactory system of a marine fish is incredible. There's no adequate metaphor, but I'll try. A sniffer dog detects substances at a concentration of parts per billion. A shark detects blood at a concentration of 1 part per 10 billion. But species like the red drum, the snapper, and the grouper, which are the most common targets in South American waters, have olfactory sensitivity to specific amino acid compounds at concentrations even lower than that. 1 part per trillion. This means they can detect the smell of bait from hundreds of meters away, depending on the current and water conditions. And here's the secret the industry will never really tell you. Fresh bait releases amino acids. Fermented bait releases a cascade of amino acids, enzymes, and volatile compounds that is literally 10 to 20 times more intense than fresh bait. The fermentation process breaks down the fish's proteins into smaller pieces, the free amino acids, which dissolve in water much faster and travel much further. It's like the difference between smelling coffee inside a coffee shop and smelling coffee 3 blocks away because someone spilled the roasted grounds on the floor. The intensity of the signal is completely different. Compounds like trimethylamine, histamine, and cadaverine, which are natural byproducts of protein fermentation in fish, are detected by the olfactory system of marine fish as a signal of available prey. It's not a smell that attracts out of curiosity, it's a biological trigger. The fish associates this set of molecules with real, available, accessible food. It's the same chemical signal that a dead sardine or a decomposing shrimp would naturally release on the seabed. You're basically telling the fish, in its own language, there's food here, now, come and get it. Synthetic lures attempt to mimic this with artificial scents. Some even add synthetic amino acids. But the problem is that they never replicate the complexity of the signal. It's like trying to imitate a barbecue with a spray. The smell is similar, but it's not the same. The fish, with all its sensitivity, perceives the difference. So, how do you make the bait? Don't worry, I'll teach you the right way. You will need fresh sardines, or another small fish with oily flesh such as anchovies or mackerel. 250 grams is enough for a good session. You will need 4 cloves of garlic, well crushed, not chopped, crushed, because the difference in the result is real. A level tablespoon of coarse salt. 2 tablespoons of cassava flour, not wheat flour. Cassava flour has a texture that better withstands salt water and dissolves at the right rate, and a plastic container with a tight-fitting lid of at least 500 milliliters. Step 1. You're going to clean the sardines. It doesn't need to be perfect. Remove the head, open it in the middle, remove the main bone. You can leave the skin on. The fat from the skin is part of the process. Cut it into small pieces, 1 to 2 centimeters. Step 2. Crush the garlic. Don't use a garlic press or food processor. Use the side of a knife and the weight of your hand. You want to release allicin, the active compound in garlic, mechanically without oxidation. Mix the crushed garlic with the chopped fish. Step 3. You add the coarse salt. The salt will begin to draw the liquids out of the fish through osmosis and will create the right environment for controlled fermentation. Stir well. Step 4. Now the cassava flour. It will create a paste that will stick to the hook and slowly release into the water, creating a scent trail. Stir until it becomes a thick paste that doesn't easily fall off your finger when you hold it vertically. Step 5. Close the jar and refrigerate. Let it rest for at least 12 hours. 24 hours is ideal. 48 hours is the peak. After 48 hours, it starts to become too strong for your nose, but it remains perfect for the fish. However, the texture then starts to break down very quickly in the water, which can be a problem for the hook. The ideal point is when you open the jar and smell a strong, acidic, oily odor. The paste should be a slightly darker color than when it went in. If it still smells almost like fresh sardines, it needs more time. If there's a layer of dark liquid on top, mix it back in. That's a big part of the bait's potency. In the refrigerator, it lasts 5 days with good performance. In the freezer, in separate portions, it lasts up to 3 months without losing much efficiency. It freezes in silicone cubes, which is more practical to use on the boat. Now, if you want to boost your recipe, there are 3 additions that really make a difference. The first is shrimp pulp. Not the whole shrimp, the pulp. You can use fresh or thawed shrimp, process it until it becomes a paste, and add a tablespoon to the mixture before closing the jar. The shrimp adds betaine and TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which are compounds that carnivorous marine fish directly associate with prey. Especially in snappers and groupers, the response is immediate. The second addition is cod liver oil. Half a teaspoon. No more than that. Fish liver oil releases long-chain fatty acids that dissolve differently in salt water and create an oily slick that spreads with the current. It's basically an underwater billboard telling you where the bait is. The third is cayenne pepper. A quarter teaspoon. Not because of the spiciness. Fish don't experience capsaicin the same way humans do. The pepper adds compounds that stimulate the fish's chemoreceptors in the palate, which are the taste sensors located on the lips and fins. When the fish is already close by smell and touches the bait, the pepper increases the biting response. It's the difference between the fish tasting and releasing and the fish tasting and swallowing. With these 3 additions, the recipe covers the 3 main feeding senses of marine fish: smell through fermentation and garlic, taste through pepper and shrimp compounds, and fat sensation through cod liver oil. It's a complete signal. The $70 synthetic bait you find on the shelf doesn't do this with the same complexity. It can't. You know what else? The total cost of this supercharged recipe is no more than $4. And that's on a fishing trip where most guys spend between $50 and $100 on bait. And that's exactly why the industry doesn't want you to know this. The American market for artificial lures and artificially scented baits generates close to $2 billion a year. $2 billion. A significant portion of that money comes from amateur fishermen who don't have access to the knowledge that their predecessors possessed. They buy because they don't know there's another way. And as long as they don't know, they'll keep buying. It's a business model that depends on their ignorance. It's not personal. It's just about money. Companies invest in marketing that associates expensive bait with success. Advertisements featuring professional fishermen holding large fish. Promises of scientific formulas developed in laboratories. Packaging with technical language. All this creates the illusion that you need expensive technology to fish well. But the fishermen who fish the most, those who live on the coast, those who depend on it for their livelihood, those who have taught their children and grandchildren for generations, have never used any of that. They used what nature already offered, prepared in the right way. And they fish better than any novice equipped with an imported kit. Now let's talk about how to use this in practice, because there are some details that make a real difference when you need to. Amount on the hook. You want a ball the size of a grape, firmly attached to the hook. Not huge, not tiny. Grape-sized. Too big, the paste falls off quickly and you lose coverage of the hook. Too small, it doesn't create enough of a trail. The paste should cover the hook completely, but still leave the tip free to set the hook. Timing after casting. Wait at least 4 minutes before reeling in to see if it caught anything. The paste needs time to start dissolving and create the scent trail. If you reel it in within a minute, you're fishing in an empty spot the whole time. The signal hasn't reached anywhere yet. Best conditions. Dawn and late afternoon are classic times, but in saltwater, there's an extra factor: the changing tide. In the 2 hours before and after the tide changes, whether it's high or low tide, the water flow distributes the scent of the bait much more efficiently. You cast into a good tidal current with this paste, and the chemical trail reaches places you wouldn't even imagine. That's when the most impressive results appear. Water temperature also changes everything. In cold water, below 20 degrees Celsius, the fermentation of the paste slows down a bit, and the smell spreads more slowly. It compensates by leaving the bait in the water longer before retrieving. 6–7 minutes between retrieves. In warm water, above 27 degrees, the opposite happens. The smell spreads much faster, but the paste also dissolves faster on the hook. Retrieve in 3 minutes, and rebait more frequently. Species that respond best. Red snapper is the champion. Grouper comes next. Red drum, also called redfish, responds very well, especially with the addition of shrimp. Flounder is more difficult. It hunts by sight and movement more than by smell, but even so, it responds to fermentation when the water is muddy. Sheep's head, which is a fish that many people ignore but is delicious, consistently goes after this paste. Pompano too. Avoid the most common mistake: casting your lure in the wrong spot thinking it will compensate. A good lure in a dead spot is still a dead spot. First, you need to know where the fish are. Bottom structure: reef, rock, sunken platform, channel edge. The right lure in the right place is unstoppable. The right lure in the wrong place is frustration. If the water is still, without current, the paste will be concentrated in a small radius around the point where you cast it. In this case, it's worth anchoring and casting several lines at different angles, creating a radial scent distribution pattern. In flowing water, you let the current do the work for you and create a scent line that can attract fish from much further away. And remember Daario at the Florida Marina? What he knew that others didn't wasn't just the recipe. It was the whole system. Where to be, when to be there, how to present it. The bait was the ingredient that completed the system, not the entire system. You'll learn this difference when you start applying it for real. For those who want to go beyond the basics, the book High-Level Fishing. The water game breaks it all down in a way that you can apply directly without having to figure it out the hard way. Water reading. How to identify productive zones in seconds, even on coastlines you've never fished before. Structure and positioning. Where the fish really are and why. Current and tide as the engine of your fishing. Behavioral patterns you can learn to predict. The mindset that separates those who fish well from those who fish a lot. The link is in the first pinned comment. It's the knowledge they tried to bury. Now it's in your hands. Now think about this. On your next saltwater fishing trip, while the others disembark with coolers of purchased bait, $80 a kits, and nice packaging, you arrive with a plastic container that cost $3 worth of ingredients. 15 minutes of fishing with this paste, you already feel the difference. It's not luck. It's not a coincidence. It's a chemical signal reaching the olfactory system of a fish that perceives 1 part per trillion. It's biology, not magic. Your boatmates will look at your bucket and ask what you're using. You decide whether to tell them everything, just a part, or smile the same way Daario smiled. The industry wants you to believe you need to spend a lot of money to fish well, that the simplest ingredients don't work, that the knowledge of the ancients was superstition. But the fish in the buckets of those who use this technique tell a different story. You learned today that a $4 paste, made at home with a scientific understanding of its fundamentals, can consistently outperform any off-the-shelf synthetic bait. This isn't an opinion. It's what the chemistry of marine fish tells you when you know how to read it. What will change the next time you go out on the water now that you know this? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. There's more stuff they tried to hide coming soon.